Let it all burn, just like your lies.
They say the delivery room is where miracles happen. They don't mention the nightmares that can unfold there, or how a single moment can shatter everything you thought you knew about your life. My name is Nick Renner, and I'm 40 years old. I manage Romano's, an upscale Italian restaurant in Briarwood, a picture-perfect suburban town where everyone knows everyone else's business. Or, at least, they think they do. I've got 2 daughters, Ava and Jamie, 8 and 6 respectively, and until 3 months ago, I thought I had a loving wife named Marissa. The fluorescent lights in Briarwood Hospital's delivery room cast everything in a harsh, clinical glow. Marissa was in her final stages of labor, gripping my hands so tightly I thought she might break my fingers. Dr. Sue, our OB-GYN, was a nervous man on the best of days, but something about his demeanor that night felt different. His hands shook more than usual, and he kept glancing at me with an expression I couldn't quite read. "Almost there, Marissa," Dr. Sue said, his voice strained. "One more big push." I squeezed my wife's hand and tried to offer encouragement, but my mind was elsewhere. For months, maybe even years, I'd been noticing things. Little things. Marissa staying late at the gym with her trainer Chase. The way she'd quickly flip her phone face down when I walked into a room. How she'd started calling me distant and emotionally unavailable whenever I questioned her whereabouts. The baby's cry pierced the air and I felt a momentary surge of joy. But when I looked at Dr. Shu's face, that joy evaporated instantly. The color had drained from his cheeks and his eyes were wide with what looked like panic. "Let me see my baby," Marissa demanded, trying to sit up despite her exhaustion. Dr. Shu caught my eye and mouthed something that made my blood run cold. "Run. Just run." I caught a glimpse of the newborn as he quickly wrapped it in a blanket. Something was wrong. Terribly wrong. The proportions were off, and there appeared to be developmental issues that were immediately apparent even to my untrained eye. "Mr. Renner," Dr. Shu said quietly, pulling me aside while the nurses attended to Marissa. "I need to speak with you outside. Now." In the hallway, Dr. Shu's composure completely cracked. "Listen to me very carefully," he whispered. "This child, the genetic markers. There are complications that suggest—" He paused, looking around nervously. "You need to leave. Don't ask questions. Just leave." But I didn't need him to spell it out. Deep down, I'd known for months. The timing was wrong. The way Marissa had been acting was wrong. Everything was wrong. "It's not mine, is it?" I asked. Dr. Shu couldn't meet my eyes. "I can't discuss patient confidentiality, but if I were you, I'd get a DNA test. Quietly." I went back into the delivery room, kissed Marissa's forehead, and told her I was going to call our families with the good news. Instead, I drove straight to my brother Tom's house. Tom is a detective with the Briarwood Police Department, 3 years younger than me, but infinitely wiser when it comes to reading people. He took one look at my face when he opened his front door at 2 a.m. and immediately poured me a double whiskey. "Talk to me," he said simply. I told him everything. The suspicious behavior, the doctor's reaction, my growing certainty that I'd been living a lie. Tom listened without judgment, occasionally nodding or asking clarifying questions. "What do you want to do?" he asked when I finished. "I want the truth." 2 weeks later, the DNA results confirmed what I already knew. The child wasn't mine. I'd been raising 2 daughters who were mine, loving a woman who'd been cheating on me, and now she'd given birth to another man's baby. I didn't confront her immediately. Instead, I spent another week gathering evidence. I hired a private investigator, a friend of Tom's named Sarah Mitchell, who specialized in domestic cases. What she uncovered was worse than I'd imagined. Marissa hadn't just been cheating with Chase, her personal trainer at Elite Fitness. There were multiple affairs, spanning at least 2 years. Chase was married to a woman named Erica, who apparently had no idea about the affair. There were explicit text messages, hotel receipts, and even security footage from the gym showing Marissa and Chase in compromising positions after hours. But the most damaging evidence was a series of recordings Sarah had obtained through legal means. Marissa and her best friend Nicole discussing how Nick is so clueless and how Chase gives me everything Nick can't. They talked about me like I was some pathetic joke, a meal ticket who was too stupid to realize what was happening under his own roof. On a cold Tuesday morning in November, I left a letter on our kitchen counter along with copies of the DNA test and divorce papers. "Marissa," it read, "I hope the child's father takes good care of both of you. I've put the house up for sale. My lawyer will be in touch regarding custody of Ava and Jamie. Don't try to contact me directly. Nick. I packed my essentials and moved in with Tom. By the time Marissa came home from her sister's house that afternoon, I was gone. Living with Tom was like being back in college, except we were two middle-aged men trying to navigate the wreckage of my marriage. Tom's house was a modest ranch-style home in the older part of Briarwood, far enough from my old neighborhood that I didn't have to worry about running into Marissa or her friends. The first few days were a blur of lawyers, real estate agents, and awkward conversations with my daughters. I had arranged to pick up Ava and Jamie from school, and their confusion broke my heart. "Why aren't you living with us anymore, Daddy?" Jamie asked as we sat in my car outside their elementary school. "Mommy and Daddy are having some problems," I explained, using the age-appropriate language my lawyer had coached me on. "But I love you both very much, and that will never change." Ava, my 8-year-old, was more perceptive. "Is it because of the new baby? Kids see everything, even when adults think they're being discreet." "It's complicated, sweetheart, but you and Jamie are the most important things in my life." Meanwhile, Briarwood's gossip mill was working overtime. I first became aware of this when I stopped by Romano's to check on the lunch service and overheard two of my servers, Janet and Mike, discussing my situation. "I heard his wife was sleeping with that trainer at Elite Fitness," Janet whispered. "Chase Morrison? The one who's married to that ice queen Erica?" Mike replied. "No way." "That's what I heard, and apparently the baby isn't even Nick's." I cleared my throat, and they both jumped. "Everything okay out here?" I asked with forced casualness. "Oh, Nick, we were just—" Janet stammered. "It's fine," I said. "But maybe we could focus on the customers instead of my personal life?" They nodded quickly and scurried back to their tables, but I could see them whispering to other staff members throughout the day. That evening, Tom and I were having dinner when he brought up what he'd been hearing around town. "People are talking," he said, cutting into his steak, "and not all of it's sympathetic to you." "What do you mean?" "Some of Marissa's friends are spreading a different version of events. They're saying you abandoned your family, that you're having a midlife crisis, that you've been emotionally absent for years." I laughed bitterly. "Of course they are. Nicole Patterson has been particularly vocal. She's telling anyone who'll listen that you never paid attention to Marissa, that you were always working or watching sports, that you haven't touched your wife in months." Nicole was Marissa's best friend and workout partner, a divorced real estate agent who'd never liked me. She was also, according to Sarah's investigation, aware of all of Marissa's affairs and had even covered for her on multiple occasions. What else are they saying? That you're obsessed with porn, that you've been emotionally manipulative, that you threatened Marissa when you found out about the baby? All lies. I know that, but in a town like this, perception becomes reality pretty quickly. Tom was right. Over the next few days, I noticed the change in how people treated me. At the grocery store, at the gas station, even at work, people who'd been friendly for years were now giving me cold shoulders or pitying looks. The breaking point came on a Friday evening when I decided to grab a beer at Murphy's, a local bar where I'd been a regular for over a decade. I walked in, and the entire place went quiet. Conversations stopped mid-sentence, and I could feel every eye in the room on me. I ordered a beer from Danny, the bartender who'd served me hundreds of times before. Instead of his usual friendly greeting, he barely made eye contact. "Rough week?" he asked, but his tone was more judgmental than sympathetic. "You could say that." I was halfway through my beer when Chase Morrison walked in with two of his gym buddies. Chase was everything I wasn't, 6'3", muscled like a bodybuilder, with the kind of confident swagger that came from never being told no. He'd served 2 tours in the Middle East and had parlayed his military service into a successful personal training business and minor local celebrity status. He saw me immediately and made a show of walking over to my end of the bar. "Nick Renner," he said loudly enough for the whole bar to hear. "Heard you've been having some family troubles." "Chase." I kept my voice neutral, but my grip tightened on my beer bottle. "You know, if you'd spent half as much time taking care of your wife as you do running that restaurant, maybe things would have worked out different." The bar was dead silent now. Everyone was watching to see how I'd respond. "Interesting perspective," I said, coming from someone who makes a living helping bored housewives work out their frustrations. Chase's face darkened. "You want to be careful what you're implying." "I'm not implying anything. I'm stating facts." He leaned closer, close enough that I could smell his cologne, the same expensive brand I'd noticed on Marissa's clothes for months. Facts. Here's a fact for you. Your wife needed a real man, someone who could give her what she was missing at home. That's when I knew for certain that Chase was the father of Marissa's baby. The arrogance in his voice, the way he was practically confessing in front of a room full of witnesses. He thought he'd won. I stood up slowly, and for a moment Chase looked uncertain. I might not have been as big as him, but I'd boxed in college and had kept myself in decent shape. More importantly, I was angry in a way I'd never been before. You know what, Chase? You're absolutely right. Marissa did need a real man. Too bad she settled for a steroid-pumped gym rat who's too stupid to use protection. The entire bar erupted in whispers and gasps. Chase's face went from dark to purple. You son of a... Careful, I interrupted. We're in public. Wouldn't want to damage that sterling reputation of yours. I left money on the bar and walked out, feeling every eye in the place on me. But for the first time in weeks, I felt like I had some control back. The next morning, I woke up to find an envelope that had been slipped under Tom's front door. Inside were photographs that made my stomach drop. High-resolution images of Marissa and Chase in intimate situations, taken at what appeared to be a hotel room. But it wasn't just the photos that shocked me. It was the accompanying note. You don't know the half of it. A friend. I showed the envelope to Tom over coffee, and his detective instincts immediately kicked in. This is professional quality, he said, examining the photos with a magnifying glass. Whoever took these knew what they were doing. Who would send me this? Someone who wants you to know the truth. Or someone who wants to hurt Marissa and Chase. Maybe both. That afternoon, I decided to do some investigating of my own. I drove to Elite Fitness, the upscale gym where Marissa had been spending most of her free time for the past 2 years. The place was a monument to suburban vanity, all gleaming equipment, mirrored walls, and attractive young trainers helping wealthy housewives achieve their fitness goals. I'd only been there a handful of times, usually to pick up Marissa when her car was in the shop, but now I was seeing it through different eyes. The way the male trainers interacted with their female clients seemed less professional and more intimate. The private training rooms had frosted glass windows that obscured the view inside. The juice bar served smoothies with names like Morning After and Guilty Pleasure. I was pretending to read a fitness magazine in the lobby when I overheard a conversation between 2 women I recognized as Marissa's workout friends. I still can't believe Nick just abandoned her like that, one was saying. Right after she had the baby? Well, you know how men are when they hit middle age, the other replied. They panic and do stupid things. Still, the timing is awful. Poor Marissa is dealing with postpartum depression and her husband just disappears. At least she has Chase to help her through this. Thank God for Chase. He's been such a good friend to her. Friend. Right. I was about to leave when I noticed something interesting. Chase's car, a black BMW with custom rims, was parked in the back lot near what appeared to be a private entrance. But the gym had closed an hour ago. I waited in my car for another 30 minutes until I saw Chase and Marissa emerge from the back entrance. They were dressed casually, and Marissa was carrying what looked like a gym bag. But what caught my attention was how comfortable they were with each other, the way Chase put his hand on the small of her back, how Marissa leaned into him as they walked. This wasn't a trainer-client relationship. This was a couple. I followed them at a distance as they drove to a small motel on the outskirts of town. I watched as Chase registered for a room while Marissa waited in the car. I watched as they went into room 237 together, and I sat in my car for 2 hours until they came out, both looking satisfied and relaxed. When I got back to Tom's house, I called Sarah Mitchell. I need you to dig deeper, I told her. There's more to this than just an affair. What did you find? I told her about the anonymous photos, the overheard conversations, and what I'd witnessed at the motel. Nick, she said carefully, how far do you want me to go with this? As far as legally possible. I want to know everything. What Sarah uncovered over the next week painted a picture that was even worse than I'd imagined. Chase Morrison wasn't just having an affair with my wife. He was running what amounted to a sophisticated operation targeting wealthy, unhappy housewives in Briarwood. He and his business partner, Liam Rodriguez, had turned Elite Fitness into something resembling a high-end escort service. They identified women who were vulnerable, unhappy marriages, financial stress, empty nest syndrome, and gradually seduced them. It started with personal training sessions, then private consultations, then special massages, and eventually full-blown affairs. But it wasn't just about love. Chase and Liam were also running financial scams, convincing these women to invest in fake business ventures or take out loans for equipment purchases that never materialized. They'd bilked at least 6 women out of significant amounts of money over the past 3 years. Marissa had been one of their longest-running marks. According to bank records Sarah had legally obtained, Marissa had withdrawn over $30,000 from our joint savings account over the past year, supposedly for health and wellness investments. "There's more," Sarah told me during our meeting at a coffee shop downtown. "I think someone else is investigating them too. Someone with access to professional surveillance equipment." "What do you mean? Those photos you received? They're part of a larger collection. I have a contact in the private investigation community, and word is that someone has been building a comprehensive case against Chase and Liam for months." "Who?" "I don't know yet, but whoever it is, they're good, and they seem to be on your side." That evening, I was having dinner with Ava and Jamie at a family restaurant when I saw Erica Morrison, Chase's wife, sitting alone at a corner table. She was an attractive woman in her late 30s, with the kind of polished appearance that suggested money and good breeding. But there was something sad about her, a loneliness that was almost palpable. On impulse, I walked over to her table. "Mrs. Morrison, I'm Nick Renner. I think we need to talk." She looked up at me with intelligent blue eyes that showed no surprise at my approach. "I was wondering when you'd figure it out," she said quietly. "Please, sit down." Erica Morrison was nothing like I'd expected. Where I'd imagined a typical trophy wife, vapid, materialistic, oblivious to her husband's infidelities, I found instead a sharp, calculating woman who'd been quietly gathering evidence of Chase's crimes for over a year. "I know about your wife," she said without preamble as I sat down across from her. "I know about all of them." "All of them?" "Chase has been running this operation for 3 years. Your wife was just his longest-term project." She sipped her wine with steady hands. "I've been documenting everything. You sent me those photos." "I did. I thought you deserved to know the truth." I studied her face, looking for signs of the pain she must be feeling. But Erica Morrison had perfected the art of emotional control. "Why now? Why not expose him earlier?" "Because I needed to be thorough. Chase is smart and he's careful. If I was going to destroy him, I needed to make sure he couldn't recover." She opened her purse and pulled out a manila folder. "Your wife wasn't just having an affair, Mr. Renner. She was helping Chase identify new targets. Other wives in her social circle, women she met at school functions, neighbors. She'd invite them to try out the gym, introduce them to Chase, and then collect a finder's fee for every woman who became a client." The betrayal cut even deeper than I'd thought possible. It was one thing to learn that Marissa had been unfaithful. It was another to discover she'd been actively participating in a criminal enterprise. "What do you want from me?" I asked. "I want to destroy them both, completely, but I can't do it alone." Over the next hour, Erica laid out a plan that was both elegant and ruthless. She'd been gathering evidence not just of the affairs, but of the financial crimes, the tax evasion, and the fraudulent business practices. She had recordings, bank records, photographs, and testimonials from other victims, but she needed someone on the inside, someone who could get close to Marissa and Chase without raising suspicion. Someone like a bitter ex-husband who might be looking for revenge. "What exactly are you proposing?" "I'm proposing that we give them enough rope to hang themselves. But first, we need to isolate them from their support network." Meaning we turn the town against them. We make them pariahs. We destroy their reputations so completely that when the criminal charges come, no one will be surprised. It was a cold, calculated approach that appealed to the part of me that wanted to see them suffer. But it was also risky. "If we do this, there's no going back," I said. "There's already no going back, Mr. Renner. The question is whether you want to be a victim or whether you want to fight back." I thought about my daughters, about the lies I'd been living, about the humiliation I'd endured. I thought about Chase's smug face at Murphy's bar and Marissa's casual cruelty in those recorded conversations. What do you need me to do? The first phase of Erica's plan was psychological warfare. She'd identified the key gossips in Briarwood's social network, the women who controlled the flow of information through the community. Our job was to feed them carefully crafted pieces of information that would gradually turn public opinion against Chase and Marissa. It started small. I began frequenting Murphy's bar again. But this time I played the role of the wounded husband who was slowly discovering the extent of his wife's betrayal. I'd nurse a beer, and when asked, reluctantly share discoveries I was making. I found out she'd been taking money from our savings account, I told Danny the bartender one evening, making sure my voice was loud enough for other patrons to hear. $30,000 over the past year, said it was for health and wellness investments, but I can't find any record of what she actually bought. That's rough, man, Danny replied, and I could see him filing the information away for future conversations. A few days later, I accidentally ran into Nicole Patterson at the grocery store. Nicole was Marissa's best friend and biggest defender, but she was also one of the biggest gossips in town. "Nick," she said with forced cheerfulness, "how are you holding up?" "I'm managing," I replied, putting on my best wounded but dignified expression. "It's been hard learning about all the lies." "What do you mean?" "Oh, I probably shouldn't say anything. I don't want to make things worse for Marissa." Nicole took the bait. "What kind of lies?" I pretended to hesitate, then leaned closer. "Did you know she was helping Chase recruit other women? Like actively bringing new clients to the gym and getting paid for it?" The color drained from Nicole's face. "That's not... Marissa wouldn't..." "I have the bank records, Nicole. Payments from Elite Fitness labeled as consultation fees. She was essentially working as a recruiter." I left Nicole standing in the cereal aisle, looking like someone had just told her Santa Claus wasn't real. Meanwhile, Erica was working her own angle. As the wife of Elite Fitness's co-owner, she had access to the gym's client records, financial documents, and security systems. She began strategically leaking information to other wives whose husbands were members of the gym. "I thought you should know," she told Margaret Chen, whose husband had been working out with Chase for 6 months. "Chase has been taking photos of his clients without their consent for his personal training portfolio," he says, "but some of them are quite revealing." Margaret immediately pulled her husband out of the gym and started telling her friends about the inappropriate behavior she'd heard about. Within 2 weeks, Elite Fitness had lost nearly a dozen members. Chase and Liam were scrambling to figure out what was happening, but the damage was spreading too quickly for them to contain. The breakthrough came when one of Chase's former victims, a woman named Rebecca Walsh, came forward with her story. Rebecca had been one of Chase's clients 2 years earlier, and he'd convinced her to invest $15,000 in a revolutionary fitness equipment startup that turned out to be completely fictitious. Erica had tracked down Rebecca and convinced her to file a police report, but more importantly, Rebecca agreed to wear a wire and meet with Chase to discuss new investment opportunities. The recording was devastating. Chase not only admitted to the previous fraud, but also bragged about his current operation with Marissa and the other women. "These suburban housewives are so desperate for attention," he said on the recording. "You give them a little muscle and some smooth talk, and they'll hand over their husband's money without thinking twice. Marissa's been my best recruiter. She knows exactly which wives are vulnerable." When Tom heard the recording, his expression was grim. "This is enough to arrest him," he said. "But if you want to completely destroy him, we need to be strategic about timing." "What do you mean?" We wait until he's most vulnerable, until he's made the biggest mistake possible." That mistake came sooner than we expected. Chase Morrison's downfall began with his own arrogance. Despite the mounting problems at Elite Fitness, he couldn't resist one final spectacular con. He'd been planning what he called the big score, a fake investment opportunity that would net him and Liam over $200,000 from their wealthy clients. The scheme involved a fictitious partnership with a luxury resort in Costa Rica. Chase told his marks that he was opening a high-end fitness retreat that would cater to wealthy Americans looking for an exclusive wellness experience. For an initial investment of $25,000, they could become founding partners and receive lifetime access to the resort, plus a guaranteed return on their investment. It was ambitious, elaborate, and completely fraudulent. Erica learned about the plan through her access to Chase's computer and immediately informed me. This was our opportunity to catch him in the act of committing a major felony while simultaneously exposing the full scope of his operation. "He's planning to hold a presentation at the country club next Friday," she told me during one of our clandestine meetings. "All of his current clients will be there, including Marissa. He's going to ask them to write checks on the spot." How do we stop it? We don't stop it. We let it happen, but we make sure the right people are watching. Tom arranged for undercover officers to attend the presentation as potential investors. Sarah Mitchell would be there as well, recording everything for the civil case. And I would be there too, playing the role of the desperate ex-husband trying to win back his wife. The presentation was held in the country club's main dining room on a Friday evening. The room was filled with about 30 people, mostly wealthy couples from Briarwood's elite social circles. Chase had rented professional audio-visual equipment and created an impressive slide presentation complete with photos of Costa Rican beaches and architectural renderings of the proposed resort. I arrived early and positioned myself at a table near the back, trying to blend in with the crowd. When Marissa walked in with Nicole, I felt the familiar pang of betrayal, but it was tempered now by the knowledge that her crimes were about to be exposed. She looked good. She lost the pregnancy weight quickly and was wearing an expensive dress I didn't recognize. She scanned the room and her eyes met mine for a moment. The look she gave me was pure contempt. Chase took the stage at 7 o'clock sharp, looking every inch the successful entrepreneur in his tailored suit and confident smile. "Ladies and gentlemen," he began, "what I'm about to show you represents the opportunity of a lifetime." For the next 45 minutes, Chase delivered a masterful sales presentation. He talked about the growing wellness tourism market, the exclusive nature of the investment opportunity, and the guaranteed returns that early investors would receive. He showed photos of the resort location and testimonials from satisfied clients who had already committed to the project. It was all lies, but it was convincing lies delivered by a charismatic sociopath who'd perfected his craft over years of practice. When he asked for questions, I raised my hand. "Nick Renner," I said, standing up. "I have a question about the financial projections." A murmur went through the crowd. Everyone knew about my divorce from Marissa, and my presence at the presentation was unexpected. Chase's smile faltered slightly, but he recovered quickly. "Of course, Nick. What would you like to know?" "I'm curious about the partnership structure. How exactly does the profit sharing work? And what guarantees do investors have that their money will be used as promised?" It was a legitimate question, but it was also designed to put Chase on the defensive. He spent several minutes giving a vague, non-committal answer that raised more questions than it answered. When he finished, I raised my hand again. "Follow-up question," I said. "Can you provide the names and contact information for the Costa Rican partners you mentioned? I'd like to do some due diligence before investing." This time, Chase's irritation was visible. "I'm afraid that information is proprietary at this stage of the development process." "So, you're asking people to invest $25,000 in a project where they can't verify the existence of your business partners?" The room was getting uncomfortable now. Several people were whispering to each other, and I could see doubt creeping into their expressions. "Nick," Marissa said loudly from her table, "maybe you should leave. This presentation isn't for you." "Actually," I replied, "I'm here as a potential investor. Unless there's some reason I shouldn't be allowed to ask questions about how my money would be used?" Chase decided to take control of the situation. "Ladies and gentlemen, I think we all know that Nick is going through a difficult personal situation right now. Perhaps his judgment isn't as clear as it normally would be. It was a mistake. By making it personal, Chase had opened the door for me to respond in kind. You're right, Chase. I am going through a difficult situation. I'm dealing with the aftermath of discovering that my wife was having an affair with her personal trainer, who also happens to be running financial scams targeting vulnerable women in our community." The room erupted in gasps and shocked whispers. Marissa stood up, her face red with anger and embarrassment. "How dare you?" she shouted. "How dare you come here and make these accusations?" "What accusations?" I replied calmly. "I'm just sharing my personal experience with Elite Fitness and its business practices." That's when Tom and his undercover officers revealed themselves. "Chase Morrison," Tom announced, showing his badge. "You're under arrest for fraud, money laundering, and conspiracy to commit theft." The next few minutes were chaos. Chase tried to run, but was tackled by one of the undercover officers before he reached the door. Marissa was screaming about harassment and false accusations. Several of the potential investors were demanding to know if their previous investments with Chase were legitimate. As Chase was being handcuffed, he looked directly at me with pure hatred in his eyes. "You think you've won?" he said. "You have no idea what's coming for you." But I did know what was coming, because Erica and I had planned for every contingency. The arrest at the country club was just the beginning. Over the next few days, the full scope of Chase and Liam's operation became public knowledge. The local newspaper ran a front-page story detailing the fraud scheme, complete with quotes from victims and a breakdown of how much money had been stolen. Elite Fitness was shut down pending investigation, and both Chase and Liam were facing multiple felony charges. But Marissa wasn't done fighting. 3 days after Chase's arrest, she showed up at Tom's house with a lawyer and a court order demanding immediate access to our daughters. "You can't keep my children from me," she said when I answered this door. "I haven't been charged with any crime." Her lawyer, a sharp-dressed woman named Patricia Vance, handed me the court documents. "My client is requesting emergency custody modification based on your recent erratic behavior and public harassment." I read through the papers while Marissa stood on the porch, trying to look like a wronged mother rather than an accomplice to fraud. "This says I've been stalking you and making threats," I said. "That's interesting, considering we haven't spoken directly in over a month." "You disrupted a private business meeting and made false accusations," Patricia replied. "That constitutes harassment. The accusations weren't false. Your client was helping Chase Morrison recruit victims for his fraud scheme. I have bank records showing payments from Elite Fitness to Marissa for consultation services." Marissa's composure cracked slightly. "Those payments were for legitimate business consulting." "What kind of consulting?" I helped with marketing and client relations, by identifying vulnerable women and steering them toward Chase's operation." Tom appeared behind me, still wearing his police uniform from his day shift. "Is there a problem here?" he asked. Patricia handed him a copy of the court order. "We're here to collect Mrs. Renner's children for their scheduled visitation." Tom read through the document carefully. "This is a request for emergency modification, not an existing order. It has to be heard by a judge before it takes effect." "We have a hearing scheduled for tomorrow morning," Patricia said. "Then you can collect the children after the hearing, if the judge rules in your favor." Marissa's mask of maternal concern finally slipped completely. "This is ridiculous!" she screamed. "He's trying to turn my own children against me. He's poisoning them with lies about their mother." "What lies?" I asked. "I haven't told them anything except that Mommy and Daddy are having problems." "You told them I was a bad person." "I never said that." "Then why won't they talk to me? Why do they cry when I try to call them?" The truth was that Ava and Jamie had been asking difficult questions that I'd been trying to answer honestly but age-appropriately. They knew their mother had done something wrong, but they didn't understand the full scope of her betrayal. And they were scared and confused by the sudden upheaval in their lives. "Maybe they're upset because their world has been turned upside down," I said. "Maybe they need stability right now, not more chaos." Marissa looked like she wanted to hit me. Instead, she turned and stalked back to her car, with Patricia following close behind. The custody hearing the next morning was a disaster for Marissa. Her lawyer had clearly expected a routine modification request, but Tom had arranged for the prosecutor handling Chase's case to attend and present evidence of Marissa's involvement in the fraud scheme. The judge, a stern woman named Margaret Foster, listened impassively as the prosecutor laid out the case against Elite Fitness and Marissa's role as a recruiter. "Your Honor," Patricia argued, "my client has not been charged with any crime. These allegations are unsubstantiated and appear to be part of a vindictive campaign by her ex-husband." "The bank records are substantiated," Judge Foster replied, "as are the recorded conversations and witness testimonials. Mrs. Renner, did you receive payments from Elite Fitness?" Marissa, who had been coached to admit only what could be proven, nodded reluctantly. "Yes, Your Honor, but they were legitimate consulting fees." "What kind of consulting did you provide?" I helped with client outreach and marketing." "Did this outreach involve identifying potential victims for fraudulent investment schemes?" Patricia objected, but the judge overruled her. "Answer the question, Mrs. Renner." "I don't know what you mean by victims. I introduced friends to the gym. That's all." Judge Foster had clearly done her homework. She'd read all the case files and listened to the recordings. "Mrs. Renner, I'm looking at a transcript of a recorded conversation between you and Mr. Morrison, where you specifically discuss targeting lonely housewives with money problems and women going through divorces who need emotional support. Does that sound like legitimate business consulting to you?" Marissa's face went white. She hadn't known about that particular recording. I don't remember saying that." "The recording is quite clear. You also discuss receiving bonuses for clients who invested more than $10,000 in Mr. Morrison's fake business ventures." The hearing lasted 2 hours, and by the end, Marissa had been reduced to tears, and Patricia was frantically trying to minimize the damage. Judge Foster's ruling was swift and decisive. Based on the evidence presented, I find that Mrs. Renner poses a potential danger to the welfare of the minor children. Her involvement in criminal activities, combined with her demonstrated poor judgment and dishonesty, makes unsupervised visitation inappropriate at this time. Custody will remain with Mr. Renner, with supervised visitation for Mrs. Renner pending the outcome of any criminal charges that may be filed. As we left the courthouse, Marissa grabbed my arm. "You bastard," she hissed. "You've destroyed everything." "I didn't destroy anything," I replied. "I just stopped pretending that your lies were the truth. This isn't over." "Yes, it is." But she was right. It wasn't over yet. 2 weeks later, I was working late at Romano's when I got a call from Tom. "You need to get home now," he said. "Marissa and Chase made bail. They're both missing, and there's reason to believe they might try to contact you." I drove to Tom's house with my heart pounding. When I pulled into the driveway, I saw police cars and knew something was seriously wrong. Tom met me at the door. "They broke into the house about an hour ago. Ava and Jamie are fine. They were at their sleepover at the Hendersons, but they trashed your room and took some of your personal documents." "What kind of documents?" "Bank records, insurance papers, anything with your personal information on it." We walked through the house, and I could see the extent of the damage. They'd gone through everything systematically, looking for something specific. "What do you think they were after?" I asked. "I think they were looking for evidence that you've been working with someone else. They know this whole thing was too coordinated to be just you acting alone." Tom was right. Chase and Marissa had figured out that I'd had help, and now they were desperate enough to take serious risks to find out who my ally was. My phone rang. Unknown number. "Nick Renner." "You think you're so smart." Chase's voice was slurred, probably from alcohol or pills. "But you have no idea what you started." "Where are you, Chase?" "Wouldn't you like to know? Here's what's going to happen. You're going to call off your dogs, drop the charges, and give me $50,000. Or things are going to get very unpleasant for you and your family." "You're threatening my children?" "I'm promising you that if you don't back down, everyone you care about is going to suffer." The line went dead. Tom had been listening on speakerphone and was already calling for backup. "They're desperate," he said. "That makes them dangerous." But it also made them sloppy, and Erica and I had been preparing for this moment. The final confrontation came on a rainy Thursday night in November. Chase and Marissa, desperate and facing serious prison time, had decided to make one last play for control. They'd been hiding out in a cheap motel outside of town, planning what they thought would be the perfect revenge. Their plan was simple, but vicious. They would break into Tom's house, destroy any evidence I'd gathered against them, and force me to recant my testimony by threatening my daughters. They'd convinced themselves that if they could discredit me as a witness, the entire case against them would collapse. What they didn't know was that Erica had been monitoring their communications through Chase's compromised phone, and we'd been expecting their move for days. I was sitting in Tom's living room at 11 p.m., ostensibly watching television, but actually waiting for the security system to alert us to their arrival. Tom was positioned in the kitchen with 2 backup officers, and Erica was monitoring from her car parked down the street. The motion sensors triggered at 11:23 p.m. 2 figures in dark clothing were moving through Tom's backyard, heading for the rear entrance. My phone buzzed with a text from Erica. "They're armed. Chase has a baseball bat. Marissa has pepper spray." I texted back, "Cameras recording?" "Everything, multiple angles." Tom's security system was state-of-the-art, installed after years of dealing with criminals who held grudges against police officers. Every entrance was monitored, every room had cameras, and the whole system automatically uploaded to a secure cloud server that couldn't be tampered with locally. I heard the back door open. They'd managed to pick the lock, which suggested more planning than I'd given them credit for. Footsteps in the kitchen, whispered voices, then the sound of furniture being moved. "Nick," Marissa's voice called out. "We know you're here. Come out and let's talk like adults." I stayed silent, letting them make the first move. The plan was to give them enough rope to hang themselves while documenting every crime they committed in the process. "Nick!" Chase's voice this time, louder and more aggressive. "Don't make this harder than it has to be." I heard them moving through the house, searching room by room. They found Tom's home office and began trashing it, looking for files and documents. The sound of papers being scattered and furniture being overturned carried clearly through the house. "Where is it?" Marissa was saying. "Where does he keep the evidence?" "Check the computer," Chase replied. And look for safes or filing cabinets. They spent 20 minutes destroying Tom's office before moving on to the bedrooms. When they reached the living room where I was waiting, Chase was carrying the baseball bat and looked ready to use it. "There you are," he said with a twisted smile. "We need to have a conversation." "About what?" Marissa stepped up beside him, holding the pepper spray like a tool. "About you ruining our lives with your lies and manipulation." "What lies?" "You know exactly what lies," she screamed. "You've been telling everyone that I'm a criminal, that I helped Chase steal money, that I'm a bad mother." "Those aren't lies, Marissa. Those are facts." Chase raised the baseball bat. "Here's a fact for you. You're going to call the prosecutor tomorrow and tell them you made everything up. You're going to say you were angry about the divorce and you fabricated evidence to get revenge. Why would I do that? Because if you don't, we're going to make sure you regret it for the rest of your life." "Are you threatening me?" "I'm promising you," Chase said. "We know where your daughters go to school. We know their schedules, their friends, their favorite places to play. Accidents happen to children all the time." That was the line they shouldn't have crossed. The moment Chase threatened my daughters, this stopped being about revenge and became about protection. "You're going to stay away from my children," I said, standing up slowly. "Or what?" Marissa laughed. "What are you going to do about it?" "This." I pressed a button on the remote control I'd been holding, and every light in the house came on simultaneously. At the same time, Tom and his backup officers emerged from their positions with tools drawn. "Police, drop your tools." Chase and Marissa spun around in panic, finally realizing they'd walked into a trap. Chase still had the baseball bat raised, and for a moment I thought he might try to fight his way out. "Don't even think about it," Tom said calmly. "You're already looking at breaking and entering, destruction of property, and making terroristic threats. Don't add assaulting a police officer to the list." Chase slowly lowered the bat, and Marissa dropped the pepper spray. "This is entrapment," she said desperately. "You set us up." "We gave you the opportunity to commit crimes," Tom replied as he handcuffed her. "You chose to take that opportunity." As they were being led away, Chase looked back at me one last time. "This isn't over," he said. "Yes, it is," I replied. "It's completely over." But the real end came 3 days later, when the prosecutor played the security footage from Tom's house at Chase and Marissa's bail hearing. The judge watched in silence as Chase threatened my children, and Marissa laughed about making me regret it for the rest of my life. When the video ended, the judge's expression was grim. "Bail is revoked," she said simply. "The defendants will remain in custody pending trial." The trial itself was almost anticlimactic. Faced with overwhelming evidence, the recordings, the bank records, the security footage, and testimony from multiple victims, both Chase and Marissa accepted plea deals rather than risk longer sentences at trial. Chase received 8 years in state prison for fraud, conspiracy, and making terroristic threats. Liam got 6 years as a co-conspirator. Marissa received 4 years for her role in the fraud scheme, with the possibility of parole in 2 years if she made full restitution to the victims. The day the sentences were announced, Erica and I met for coffee at the same restaurant where we'd first planned our campaign against them. "It's really over," she said, and for the first time since I'd known her, she looked genuinely relaxed. "What will you do now? Divorce Chase? Sell the house? Start over somewhere else? What about you?" "Stay here. Raise my daughters. Try to rebuild some kind of normal life." "Do you think you can forgive her? Eventually?" I considered the question carefully. "I don't know if I can forgive her, but I can move past this. For my daughter's sake, if nothing else." Erica nodded. "They're lucky to have you." 6 months later, I was having dinner with Ava and Jamie at our new house, a modest place in a quiet neighborhood where we could start fresh. The girls had adjusted well to their new normal, and while they still asked about their mother occasionally, they seemed to understand that some things had changed permanently. "Daddy," Jamie said as we were cleaning up after dinner, "are you happy now?" It was a simple question, but it made me pause. Was I happy? I'd lost my marriage, discovered betrayals that cut deeper than I'd thought possible, and spent months consumed with revenge and justice. But I'd also learned who my real friends were, protected my daughters from a toxic situation, and helped bring criminals to justice. "Yes, sweetheart," I said, ruffling her hair. "I'm happy." And for the first time in years, I actually meant it. Chase Morrison was released on parole after serving 6 years of his 8-year sentence. He moved to another state and, according to Tom's contacts in law enforcement, has been working construction jobs and staying out of trouble. Marissa served her full 4-year sentence and was released last month. She's living with her sister in California and has requested supervised visitation with Ava and Jamie. The girls, now 12 and 10, have expressed mixed feelings about seeing their mother again. We're taking it one day at a time. Erica Morrison remarried 2 years ago and moved to Colorado, where she runs a nonprofit organization that helps victims of domestic fraud. We exchange Christmas cards and the occasional email, but we've both moved on to new chapters of our lives. As for me, I'm still managing Romano's, still living in Briarwood, still raising my daughters. I've learned that revenge, when it's really justice, can be satisfying, but rebuilding a life after betrayal is harder and more important work. Some nights, when I'm tucking Ava and Jamie into bed, I think about that moment in the delivery room when Dr. Shu told me to run. I didn't run then, but in a way, I've been running ever since, running toward a better life for my daughters and myself. And that's a race I'm finally winning.